The crowd had barely settled into their seats before Noah leaned forward at his desk, that sly grin forming on his face, the one that always signaled trouble for whoever he was about to roast. The band's music faded, the lights locked in, and the cameras zoomed tight. He looked into the lens, shook his head slowly, and delivered the line that would soon explode across the internet. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, pausing for effect. "Tonight we're talking about Meghan Markle, also known as the Duchess of, wait for it, Yacht." The audience erupted, laughter and applause bouncing off the studio walls. Trevor sat back soaking the noise, the smirk spreading wider as the energy rolled through the room. He raised his eyebrows as if even he couldn't believe how easy this roast was going to be. "Yeah," he continued, leaning back in his chair. "Forget Duchess of Sussex. Forget all that royal branding. Duchess of Yacht. Because every time she tries to steer her image into a new direction, it somehow ends up floating aimlessly with no destination, and everybody just watching confused like, where is this thing even going?" The audience howled. He hadn't even started yet, and already Meghan Markle was reduced to a punchline, a drifting boat with no anchor, no sails, no compass. But Trevor wasn't done. This was only the opening. The real roast, the setup that would lead to absolute humiliation, was still to come. Trevor adjusted his jacket, leaned on the desk with both hands, and gave the camera that look, half amused, half disbelieving, that he used whenever he was about to slice into someone with humor that felt too close to the truth. "Look, I get it," he said. Meghan Markle thought she was leaving one royal family for freedom. But instead of freedom, what did she get? She got Netflix deadlines, Spotify cancellations, and Oprah interviews where the Wi-Fi was the only thing holding stronger than her answers. The audience cracked up, the laughter rolling through the studio. Trevor's timing was perfect, his pauses surgical. He gestured with his hands, building momentum with each line. "She keeps saying she wanted privacy." Trevor continued, his tone rising with mock sincerity. "And then she signs a $100 million Netflix deal to make a 6-part documentary about her private life. I mean, who does that? That's like saying, I'm tired of being on Instagram, so here's my OnlyFans." The laughter hit harder, people clapping, some nearly falling out of their chairs. Trevor leaned back, chuckling along with the crowd. He knew he had them. He tapped the desk lightly, shaking his head. "And the best part is every time she talks about how hard life is, she's doing it in a mansion, like a mansion, not even a regular rich house. This woman is sitting under chandeliers, sipping imported tea, and telling the world, it's so hard being me. Yeah, okay, try saying that in a Walmart break room, and see how many people agree with you." The crowd howled again. Trevor covered his mouth briefly, pretending to suppress his laughter, then leaned in closer to the microphone. "And don't even get me started on the rebranding. One day it's podcasts, next day it's children's books, next day it's a cartoon series, then it's jam jars. It's like she's spinning a wheel every morning. What am I today? Entrepreneur, philanthropist, yoga influencer, Duchess of Granola." By now, the studio was shaking with laughter. Trevor's rhythm had the crowd in the palm of his hand. He smirked knowingly, leaned back, and delivered the kicker for the setup. All of it. Every single move ends up the same way. Floating, lost, no direction. Which is why, ladies and gentlemen, Meghan Markle is not the Duchess of Sussex anymore. She's the Duchess of Yacht, just drifting in circles, hoping someone's watching. The audience exploded. Applause, whistles, laughter so loud the cameras briefly shook. Trevor sat back, arms crossed, smirking at the chaos he'd just unleashed. And this was only Act 1. The humiliation was just getting started. Trevor Noah leaned back in his chair, hands clasped together like he was about to deliver a sermon. His smirk was mischievous, his tone playful, but loaded with that cutting edge that always made his jokes sting twice as hard. "Here's the thing about Meghan Markle," he said, lowering his voice as if he were letting the audience in on a secret. "She talks about struggling, about being silenced, about being trapped. But somehow every single struggle ends with a press release, a photo shoot, and a brand deal. That's not struggling, people. That's strategy." The audience burst into laughter. clapping as Trevor nodded solemnly, pretending to sympathize. I mean, I can't even be mad at it. You gotta respect the hustle. But let's not pretend it's hardship. When you're crying in a multi-million-dollar villa in Montecito, that's not pain. That's premium cable drama. He raised his eyebrows, mimicking her voice with exaggerated poshness. It was so difficult we had to move to a 9-bedroom house with only 6 bathrooms. Can you imagine the suffering? The crowd roared. Trevor shook his head, feigning pity. Yeah, Meghan, I can imagine. It must be hell trying to figure out which marble countertop to film your podcast intro from. Real hell. The laugh lingered, but Trevor pressed on, his rhythm tightening, his tone sharper. And speaking of podcasts, he said, sitting up straighter, Spotify literally paid her millions of dollars for 12 episodes. 12. You know how bad you have to be at podcasting to get fired from podcasting? That's like getting kicked out of karaoke for being off-key. You know the bar is low, right? Podcasting is literally just talking. That's it. They gave her a mic. She talked and they were like, yeah, we're good. Thanks. We'll take our money back. The studio howled, applause breaking through the laughter. Trevor grinned, leaning forward like he was confiding in a friend. And here's the kicker. After all that, Meghan's team actually tried to say she was the one who chose to move on. Oh, really? You were paid tens of millions and released a dozen episodes about what was it? Archetypes. A show so inspiring that nobody remembers a single episode. And now you're moving on? No, Meghan, they moved on from you. There's a difference. The laughter hit harder, rolling through the room. Trevor sipped from his mug, smirking as if he needed a drink just to process the absurdity. And it's not just a podcast. Let's talk about the Netflix deal. $100 million. $100 million. That's more money than most small countries have in their education budget. And what do we get? 6 hours of Meghan and Harry explaining how hard it is to be Meghan and Harry. 6 hours. I could have watched Titanic twice and still had time left over. The crowd cracked up again, some clapping, some groaning at how brutally true the line felt. Trevor leaned back, gesturing at the imaginary Netflix screen, and they called it a documentary. But a documentary is supposed to show you the truth. This thing was like a PowerPoint presentation made by your high school crush who still thinks they're the main character. Every scene was slow-motion shots of Meghan walking through a garden like she's auditioning for a perfume commercial. If you muted it, you wouldn't know if it was about her life or about selling lavender-scented hand cream. The audience was howling now, the laughter shaking the studio. Trevor let it breathe for a moment before pushing further. And then the business ventures. Trevor continued, rolling his eyes dramatically. This woman has tried everything. Children's books, lifestyle blogs, animation projects, and most recently jam jars. Jam jars. She's selling jam like she's the Martha Stewart of Montecito. Do you know how wild it is to go from Buckingham Palace to Etsy? The crowd erupted into cheers and laughter. Trevor slapped his desk, laughing along, then straightened his tone to mock serious. I'm not even joking. She actually sent jars of jam to influencers like, here, taste the royal struggle in raspberry flavor. The laughter rolled again, waves of it crashing over the stage. Trevor waited, smirking, before lowering his voice. And yet, every single one of these ventures somehow fizzles just like that, gone like a yacht with no sails, drifting until it disappears over the horizon. The crowd burst again. The yacht analogy had landed, weaving back into his Duchess of Yacht branding. Trevor nodded knowingly, pointing at the audience as if to say, see, it all connects. Trevor could feel the momentum. The audience was fully with him, every joke landing harder than the last. He leaned forward, his tone sharper now, his words coming faster, the roast tightening like a vice. You know what really gets me? He said, shaking his head. It's the contradictions. One day Meghan saying, I just want to live a normal life. Next day, she's dropping a $100 million documentary about how extraordinary she is. One day, she's like, I don't want to be part of the royal machine. Next day, she's on stage introducing herself as the Duchess of Sussex. Like which is it? Are you the struggling every woman or the untouchable Duchess? Pick one, Meghan. You can't be both. The audience clapped, some shouting in agreement. Trevor pointed at them, his grin widening. Exactly. You can't be telling people you're just like them while getting paid more for 12 podcasts than they'll earn in 12 lifetimes. That's not relatability. That's delusion. He paused, letting the line sink in, then delivered another blow. And don't even get me started on the speeches. Meghan loves to give speeches. Every single one of them sounds the same. Vague empowerment slogans wrapped in expensive outfits. She'll be standing in front of 1,000 people saying, "We must find our voices. We must speak our truth." And everyone's nodding politely. But secretly they're thinking, didn't you just lose your Spotify deal? Maybe you sit this one out. The crowd exploded again. Trevor pacing slightly now, feeding off the energy. He mimicked Meghan's speech patterns, putting on a fake, solemn voice. We must tell our stories. Girl, you've told your story so many times. It has more spin-offs than the Avengers. The laughter was deafening, rolling waves of it crashing through the studio. Trevor grinned, pointing to the ceiling as if calling on some higher power. And every single time, it ends the same way. Meghan walks away with another headline about how misunderstood she is, and the rest of us are sitting here like, wait, didn't you just explain this already? 3 times in 3 different formats? At this point, she's not telling her story. She's recycling it. It's like watching reruns of a show you didn't like the first time. The audience clapped wildly, some standing, the energy boiling over. Trevor leaned back, breathing it in, then lowered his voice for the build-up to the ultimate humiliation. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, she's no longer the Duchess of Sussex. No. She's the Duchess of Yacht. Because everything she does just drifts. The podcast drifted. The Netflix series drifted. The speeches drifted. Even the jam jars just floating around somewhere, waiting for someone to care. The studio erupted. The biggest laugh yet. People were doubled over, clapping, whistling, shouting. Trevor sat back, smirking, letting the chaos wash over him. He knew he had landed the branding that would stick. He tapped his desk, leaned into the camera, and delivered the line clean, final, unforgettable, Duchess of Yacht. That's it. That's the title. Because when it comes to Meghan Markle, nothing's anchored. Nothing's steady. It just drifts. And we're all here watching, wondering when it's finally going to sink. The audience exploded into applause and laughter, so loud it rattled the cameras. Trevor sat back, arms crossed, his grin wide. The roast was complete. Trevor Noah sat back in his chair, a sly grin plastered across his face as the studio howled with laughter. He knew the roast had reached its peak, but he wasn't finished. Not yet. He leaned forward, rested his elbows on the desk, and gave the audience that look, half serious, half mischievous. The look he used when he was about to say something that people would be quoting for weeks. You know, he said, lowering his tone so the laughter hushed into silence. The funniest part of all this is that Meghan keeps insisting she wants to be taken seriously. And I believe her. I really do. But how can anyone take her seriously when every single thing she touches sails off into the abyss? You can't build credibility if you're still figuring out which lane you're in. And Meghan's not in a lane. She's out there drifting at sea. The crowd chuckled, waiting, sensing the setup. Trevor leaned closer to Mike, his delivery slow and deliberate. So, forget Duchess of Sussex. Forget all the royal titles. Meghan Markle is officially the Duchess of Yacht. The audience erupted. The laughter was louder than anything before. Some people literally standing, clapping, and cheering as the phrase echoed across the studio. Trevor held up his hands like he was calming a storm, but he let the wave of laughter crash and roll before speaking again. Duchess of Yacht, he repeated, nodding, his smirk spreading wider. Because every time she launches something new, it sails off with no crew, no compass, and definitely no audience. Just Meghan waving from the deck like, "Are you guys watching?" And the rest of us are like, "No, the Wi-Fi is down, Meghan. We're good." The crowd howled, their laughter shaking the rafters. Trevor let it linger, then stood up from his chair, pacing across the stage as he hammered the image home. Picture it. A big, shiny yacht parked in Montecito. Name painted on the side, privacy. And every week Meghan's hosting a new launch party on that yacht. One week it's the podcast. The next week it's a Netflix show. Then it's jam jars. And every time a yacht just leaves the dock, sails in circles, and eventually disappears. That's Meghan's brand. A yacht going nowhere. The Duchess of Yacht. The studio lost it. Whistles, claps, even stomps from the audience filled the room. Trevor leaned on the mic stand, pretending to wipe away tears from laughing. He had done it. He had branded her with a title she would never shake. By the next morning, the clip was everywhere. The hashtag shot to the top of Twitter. Oh, Sir Duchess of Yacht. Trevor Noah roast. Meghan humiliated. TikTok feeds flooded with edits of Trevor's killer punchline, spliced with images of luxury, yachts drifting aimlessly across the ocean. Instagram Reels played the moment on loop. Each one captioned with a variation of Trevor said, "What we were all thinking." Even the meme economy moved at lightning speed. One showed Meghan Photoshop at the helm of a yacht with the words "Next Venture," lost at sea. Another had a yacht labeled privacy crashing into an iceberg called Spotify cancellation. Others turned Trevor's quote into merch mock-ups. T-shirts, mugs, even tote bags printed with Duchess of Yacht. Media outlets wasted no time piling on. Digital headlines blared. Trevor Noah dubs Meghan Markle the Duchess of Yacht. Internet explodes. Noah's yacht joke leaves Meghan humiliated. From royalty to roasted, Meghan becomes comedy's biggest punchline. Commentators described the roast as one of Trevor's sharpest moments, a takedown that cut through Meghan's carefully polished PR image. Trevor Noah distilled Meghan Markle's entire career into one metaphor, one columnist wrote, and the accuracy is what made it sting. Clips of audience members doubled over in laughter circulated alongside slow-motion edits of Trevor delivering the line. Reaction videos poured in, YouTubers, TikTokers, even rival comedians praising Trevor's timing and boldness. Some called it the roast of the year. And for Meghan, the silence was deafening. Her team issued no response, no clarification, no counter-narrative. The joke was too sharp, too viral, too unstoppable. Every attempt to reframe it only amplified it. The more people defended her, the more the phrase Duchess of Yacht trended. What hurt most wasn't just the laughter. It was a truth embedded in the joke. Trevor hadn't fabricated anything. He had simply pointed out what the public had already noticed. Every venture fizzled, every speech recycled, every rebrand drifted without direction. And now the metaphor of the yacht, shiny but aimless, floating without purpose, had stuck. Weeks passed, but the clip refused to fade. It wasn't just another late-night joke. It became shorthand, a label, a brand Meghan never asked for, but couldn't escape. Wherever her name appeared online, the comments followed. Articles about her Netflix deals ended with jokes about yachts. Posts about her Montecito lifestyle drew yacht emojis. Even coverage of unrelated events saw people replying, "Ah, yes, the Duchess of Yacht returns." For Trevor Noah, the legacy was career-defining. He had delivered plenty of sharp monologues before, but this roast stood out. It wasn't just funny, it was devastating. Fans praised him for capturing what many felt but hadn't articulated. Critics acknowledged the brilliance of metaphor, calling it a punchline that became prophecy. For Meghan, it was catastrophic. The branding was too sticky, too viral, too perfectly descriptive to fade away. She'd spent years trying to control her image, from royal victim to global influencer, from podcast host to entrepreneur. But Trevor's 4 words unraveled it all. Duchess of Yacht reduced her to a drifting caricature, a symbol of failure disguised as grandeur. The footage lives on. It's replayed in compilations of top TV roasts, in retrospectives of Trevor Noah's career, in social media montages mocking Meghan's every new venture. And each time the audience laughs as loudly as they did that night, the title echoing again and again, the Duchess of Sussex may have left the palace. But in the court of public opinion, she became something else entirely. Thanks to Trevor Noah, she is remembered as the Duchess of Yacht, a title that no amount of PR spin will ever sink.